My name is Brent Burney.
And spell it for us, please.
First name B-R-E-N-T, last name B-U-R-N-E-Y.
Okay.
Gotcha. So, sorry.
Sure.
Your reaction to the verdict coming down?
Well, initially shocked and sadness because there are no winners on either side of this. We want to thank the jury and everybody that showed up, but the jury did its job. Like I said, it's hard. There was really no right or wrong answer there. You've got families and victims from that house that are hurting and will continue to hurt. So it's just tough. There's no high-fiving. There's no hugging. I mean, the hugging is just out of tears for our team and everybody involved. And we know they're on the other side as well. But I couldn't have done it without obviously Carl and Christy Miller, but it goes far beyond that. I mean, our mitigation experts, Cindy Short, Mary Kay, and their whole team. I mean, we have worked for a long time on this, and we're just, thankful for everybody, and thankful for the jury. They listen. Me and Carl have been doing this a long time. In a month-long trial, we didn't lose a single juror. And you can lose a juror in a 2-day trial. So
something that stood out to me about your case, there was a lot of things that you guys introduced to the jury, but the closing for sure I think stood out in a lot of people's minds. You kind of made it personal. You
Sure.
Talked about your baby, you talked about Rogers. Why was that important for you to do?
Well, because these cases are tough, and it dawned on me that they were the same age, and you gotta. It is personal. The state of Alabama wanted to kill him, execute him, and so it's hard to do, because they're the same age, and so it is personal to me. I mean, these are tough cases, and
Talk a little bit about the man hours that you put into this
Oh,
trial.
Lord.
I mean, I know it's a lot to cover, but emotionally, what was the hardest part of trying to put together a defense for this?
He's not going to brag on himself. Let me brag on Brent for him. He went to Colorado to learn how to pick the jury, the perfect jury in this case. He went to Colorado for 3 days to learn how to do that and study it. And he came back and he kind of trained us on it a little bit on how to do that. That's the dedication he has to this kind of case and the job that he did. We go up to Kansas City to meet with the mitigation team. Mary Kay Poyer and Cindy Smith, and amazing. And that's somebody that through another case Brent had, he got linked onto those guys. So that's a great question, because the effort that Brent put into this and orchestrating this is what resulted in the outcome today. And I've said it from the beginning. This is his case. He's first chair, and he knocked it out of the park from the very beginning, assembling the team, and certainly picking that very, very astute and serious jury. Because you hear about this case at the beginning, and you hear 7 dead bodies and the nature of it, and there's a lot of people that thought there's no chance. This is an automatic death penalty case. And I think everybody knows what happened today was the best possible outcome. There was never going to be a life sentence or a 30-year sentence, and certainly not an acquittal. Life without parole was the best possible outcome, and because of what Brent did in setting this up is why Ricky Rogers got it. And just a little bit about Ricky Rogers and what Brent said in closing, that's my flower girl, man, that you're talking about. His daughter was my flower girl. So I got emotional listening to him talk about that, because family matters, and who you're born into matters. And in a different family, Ricky Rogers isn't sitting over there. And that's what Brent drove home. And it was personal. And I thought he did a great job, and I'm proud of him.
Well, I couldn't have done it with Carl or Christy Miller, who has gotten away. But you asked about man hours. I don't even know how many hours we put in it. And there's hours we log, but then there's hours you don't log, the sleepless nights. But I want to thank my wife and my kids. And my daughter was supposed to be helping me pick this jury, but she got sent to Texas. So, and I know Carl's family's made sacrifices, and Christy's, and our mitigation team. And I cannot say enough about everybody. And it wasn't a one-man show. This was a team, and it was a nationwide team. They went out and talked to everybody that had any association. And Jamie Gerald, forget Jamie, our investigator, he has driven all over North Alabama, interviewed people, been in out of the jail. So it's truly a team effort. And, I think justice without violence was done today. And I don't believe in the death penalty. That's why it's personal to me. I just personally don't believe it. If we are a pro-life state, that's pro-life from birth to death, even if the baby turns out to be a killer. If we're going to be pro-life, then let's be pro-life all the way.
And you guys said that you were going to take a second to speak with the jurors after this was all done. Talk us a little bit about what you guys spoke about.
Well, I talked to them, I guess, a little bit more than Brent did, and what I took away from the handful of jurors that we spoke to is we were probably better off earlier in the case than maybe we even perceived. A couple of the jurors seemed to be with us from the beginning. The mitigation mattered. The story that we told in voir dire, the jury selection, and the opening statement seemed to matter to them. So I think we got off on a good foot with them. I think being completely honest matters to jurors. They don't want lawyers playing games with them. We were straightforward, told them the truth. I think Ricky Rogers confessing early on and taking responsibility mattered. But again, I come back to I think we got the right jury in the box for this case.
We did.
On that note, you had somewhat of an unusual opening statement. Atypical case, maybe. You told the jury in openings, Rogers will die in prison. Going into that opening statement, can you walk us through a little bit of your headspace? Do you think that was a gamble? Did the defense team in general think that was a gamble at the time? What was the thought process behind that?
I don't know if it's actually a gamble as much as a Hail Mary, maybe. What do you do in this case? Because he's not walking out, right? He's confessed twice. I like to think of myself as a fighter who's got a real good record of having people walk out with their freedom. But this wasn't a case about freedom. This was a case about life. And I thought acknowledging on the front end that he could be kept away from society the rest of his life, that if any jurors had a fear of him ever committing another crime, they didn't have to live with that fear, because life without parole means life without parole. They needed to know it. So the first thing out of my mouth was Ricky Rogers will die in prison, one way or the other.
On that note, did any jurors comment on your opening statement when you were discussing it?
One of them talked about they felt like knowing that he was not going to be able to get out ever mattered. And that was a theme, and I think it was consistent throughout every stage that we went with that.
And let me add something. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the experts, Dr. Urbanik, Dr. Schaefer, Dr. Christian Bolden, and Mr. Hewlin. These cases aren't really tried in a vacuum.
Sure.
And we do a lot of research, a lot of work, and there's a lot of hands that go into play from Colorado to here. And the research shows almost without fail that if you don't have a real guilt phase defense and you stand up and try to tell a jury that your client didn't do it, when we know what the evidence is, that almost ensures a death penalty. The jury wants you to be credible and tell the truth. And if we stand up and try to pass off a defense that we know as lawyers, and me and Carl have been doing this close to 30 years apiece, we've tried a lot of cases together. If we get up and said that, by the time we stood up in mitigation, they weren't going to listen to a thing we said because they thought we were lying to them. And I will tell you, we didn't lie to the jury from day one all the way to yesterday. And so they did their job, and the system works. This was touted as the worst murder case, the biggest murder case in Morgan County. And a jury of 12 people, out of 12, 10 just said, give him life. And it started with Carl's opening, without a doubt. So.
And finally, the jurors, they are going to be left with seeing those pictures and hearing all of this. I mean, I know that with your guys' experience, this is something that you think about often, but how do you think that these jurors are now going to be left when you back out in the community after hearing that?
What I noticed about this jury more than anything is they were serious. They paid attention. Brent commented several times throughout the course of the trial We've had 3-day civil trials where we have to use alternates. We had a month-long criminal trial with awful video, boring experts. Nobody fell asleep. Jurors paid attention. I think they took it serious, and obviously, it's regretful that anybody has to view crime scene photos and autopsies. It's horrible. I mean, it is, and they appropriately found in their minds it to be heinous, atrocious, and cruel. So, we feel for the victim's family, we feel for the jurors having to go through this, and everybody has to live with it. And as Brent said, there's no winners in the sense that Ricky's going to live in prison the rest of his life, and he could have been so much more. But at the end of the day, as Brent said, the system worked the way it was supposed to, and it doesn't work without those jurors that show up.
Oh, absolutely. None of this happens.
Decisions are made by the people that show up, and they showed up every day, and they did their job.
Carl, can we get your name first and last? Have you spell it, please?
Yeah, Carl Cole, Carlcole.